I am so excited to have you join us for Women in Film's Laptop Cinema Club, the series that brings you compelling conversations with an exclusive access to some of the most talented female creatives making the media you love. I am delighted to have you all here with us tonight. Some of you are on Facebook Live. Some of you are here with us in Zoom. We're gonna be having a conversation tonight about the #1 show on Netflix right now, Cursed, which is a retelling of the Arthur legends via a story about a teenage sorceress on a mission to save her people. Joining us to chat about the Frank Miller and Tom Wheeler creation is prolific TV and theater director and Reframe Rise standout, Zetna Fuentes. And in our moderator's chair tonight is the incomparable TV and film critic, Yolanda Machado. As a reminder, Zetna will be taking your questions about Cursed or her career in general. So please drop those questions in the Facebook chat or the Q&A window at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and we will get to absolutely as many as we can. If we don't get to your question, feel free to take it to Twitter, use hashtag #CursedNetflix, try and get those answers, be part of the community, talk about this amazing series. I will be using that hashtag because I know my questions are not going to be answered tonight. So join me in that situation. But before we begin tonight's conversation, I also want to let you know that we'll be hosting another amazing Laptop Cinema Club next week with director Jessica Swale and actresses Gemma Arterton and Gugu Mbatara about the upcoming film Summerland coming out of Lionsgate. So our conversation with them is on July 29th. It's at 12 p.m. Pacific. Just take a lunch break, tune in with this, bringing these women live from the UK for this conversation. We don't want you to miss it. So we will drop the RSVP link in the chat window. But now, I want to introduce you to our guest this evening. Yolanda Machado is a Los Angeles-based award-winning blogger, critic, and freelance entertainment journalist with bylines at GQ, Elle, Marie Claire, the LA Times, Broadway, Harper's Bazaar, Remezcla, and more. She's a Latina mother of 1 daughter and has an obsession for pop culture and Broadway musicals. My favorite fact that I found online, she's obsessed with Oscar Isaac, same. And John told her she has great hair. Please post a question about that people wanna know. Zetna Fuentes is a theater and television director. She's most recently directed and executive produced the pilot and 2nd episode of the new Netflix series Cursed, which we'll be talking about tonight, based on the illustrated novel by Frank Miller and Thomas Wheeler. Her recent credits include basically everything I'm watching on TV. So that's The Deuce, Ray Donovan, The Shy, Jessica Jones, This Is Us, Bosch, Snowfall, and Shameless. She's also previously directed on daytime dramas, including Guiding Light and One Life to Live, which she was nominated for 3 Daytime Emmy Awards. She was born and raised in the Bronx and began her directing career in New York theater, working on numerous critically acclaimed off-Broadway productions. She serves on the National Board of the Directors Guild of America. I am so, so excited to have you all with us. I'm gonna turn off my camera, turn off my mic, because otherwise I'm gonna just be all up in the mix for this conversation, and that's not what we're here for. So I turn it over to you. I can't wait to hear more about the show and to hear more from you, Zetna, about your career. Thanks, everyone. And
thank you so much.
Pay attention.
Hello. Hi, Zetna. It's so awesome to get to talk to you about Cursed today. First off, congratulations. What a fantastic show. My husband and I spent the entire day watching it. We were completely immersed. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So big question. You get the job, right? And now you're told you're directing episode 1 and 2. So you have to set the tone, the theme, the entire universe for the rest of the series. What element did you start with and why?
Yeah, it's really funny to go back to the very beginning because it's very overwhelming. It's all of those things. And it's challenging, but as a director, that's always what I wanted to do. I wanted to do a pilot where you get to set the tone and you get to build a world. And so for me, it always starts with the script. I treat the script like it's everything, especially in the beginning, well, the whole process, but in the beginning, I'm reading it over and over again to get all of the clues that hopefully are going to help me to ask the questions that will spark everyone's imagination and creativity, all the collaborators that we put together to kind of build the world. And it comes from the script, and it comes from the characters and their relationships and what they want, what they need. And that analysis of the script hopefully leads you to then start asking all those questions about the how are you going to do it?
Now, you also had, it might not necessarily be a challenge, but you already had Catherine Langford cast when you were brought on. So as a director, what, how did you collaborate with her to bring your vision to life, or where was the meeting of the minds as far as where Nimue was and where she would go?
Yeah, great question. It can be terrifying as a director to have your lead already cast and you have no say in it. But when I heard from Tom and Frank, who created the series, that Catherine Langford was attached, I felt like I hit the jackpot because I was a fan of her work. 13 Reasons Why for me, the work that she did that season, that first season, was so exceptional. And and yeah, I can't take any of the credit for casting her as Nimue, but I certainly reaped the rewards because she brought everything. She didn't leave anything off the table. She worked so hard. She's incredibly prepared. She wants to dig in. She wants to do everything. She wants to rehearse. She wants to do all her stunts. She's joyful. She loves collaborating, and she has a really strong point of view. And for me as a director, that's what you want from everyone around you. You're building a team. The cast is obviously a huge part of that. And you're number one, you really want a person who has thoughts and has something to say with the character and with the story, and she's that person. And so we had a lot of conversations from the very beginning with the creators, with Tom and Frank, and just Catherine and I sitting and talking about the character and what we felt the character development needed to be to bring that role to life.
Because for me, I've noticed, especially in the past few years with everything, the Me Too movement, Time's Up, there's so much changing in the way we tell female-led stories. And especially, I think it's fantastic that this story was told by, at least the first two episodes, I didn't like it, who else, but by a woman, but also a woman of color, as we know the stats are. So, I mean, it's sad. It is ridiculous it's like that, but yeah, thank you, thank you, thank you. Can you talk about what that meant, no, as a Latina director being handed a period piece to direct, because we don't get that opportunity.
No. I have to tell you that is not lost on me. It meant a lot. It just, because historically we don't get the opportunities. We don't get the chance to tell sometimes our own story, many times our own stories. So to get an opportunity to tell a story that is in a different time period, that's dealing with the Arthurian legend, I'm not on paper the typical person that they would go to direct this. And so I have to, say thank you to Tom Wheeler, Frank Miller, Netflix, for not even going to bat for me. From the very beginning, they wanted me to do it. They were excited about the vision. They were excited about the ideas that I had. And it's rare, it's rare that we get that opportunity. So I wanted to grab that and run with it and do everything I could to do an amazing job.
Well, you definitely did. I'm gonna start weaving in some questions because you got some questions here. And a few of them are actually from Savira and Carla, were particular what is the biggest challenge you face adapting from theater to television as a director?
Ooh, great question. I think, again, for me, because I loved working in theater, it's always about the material, the script, and that's always the starting point, whether it's theater or daytime or prime time. And so I think after, thinking about the work and always going back to that, it's helpful when you start to think about the challenges and the differences, right? But you always have that to hold on to and know that if you have a really strong script and a strong point of view and you're working from the text, then again, hopefully it's giving you all the clues that you need to tell the story. But I think for me, because theater obviously is live and theater is on a proscenium, when I started to go work in single camera, it was interesting for me how to really push myself into thinking about where I could put the camera that didn't need to be from, a typical audience perspective like you see in theater. And I remember when I started working in primetime single camera, I really used to force myself to think about putting the camera in all the places that I never could, put the audience in when I was working in theater and then working in daytime. So that was a big challenge for me.
Yeah, I actually did want to ask a little bit because I was curious when I saw your bio. I'm like, your start was essentially theater, and then you went soap operas. How do you? What are the key elements that you learned directing soap operas that you have infused that helped you essentially throw yourself into the cursed world?
I have to tell you, I've thought about this a lot, and I've said this before that, for me, daytime was an incredible experience, like across the board. I loved it. I learned so much. I had all these producers and fellow directors and cast and crew who, taught me so much about television production, all on the production side, and many, many lessons learned: how to make a day, how to really have a strong point of view, and how to trust your gut, because you don't have a lot of time to do a lot of takes. You have so much material to get through. And so I've said this, there's not a day that's gone by on a set since then where I don't think about something from the soap world that's really helped me. And I think that discipline, that discipline about, this is the amount of time you have, this is these are your constraints, these are your boundaries, and you have to figure it out. You have to make it work, and you have to do the best you can and try and tell the best story you can. And I think that you always have boundaries and you always have constraints. Curse certainly had them.
Yeah, I'm always interested in the soap world because I think a lot of people underestimate it because you get it every day. You're not used to, you don't know the work it takes to turn around something that quickly and so well over and over. So
I think it's a world that doesn't get a lot of, credit and attention, especially now, but I think, such artistry, such craft in every aspect of the soap world.
Where I was wondering if maybe it particularly helped you was in that 2-minute shot, the one where Nimue is kind of walking, that everything's going on in her village. And I mean, obviously the immediate one I thought of was 1917 because it's the most recent, but wow, that was set. Was that a one shot or was it just cleverly cut?
No, it's a real one shot. It is a one shot. And I have to tell you, like from the beginning, when we read the script and when I read the script, I saw that unfold that way. Like the movie in my head, I wanted to only be with her. Like I wanted it to be in Nimue's point of view. And I didn't want to leave her to go and see some random action that didn't have anything to do with what she was experiencing emotionally. And so I kept going back to it. And then when I started to talk to, our DP, who was amazing, our production designer, stunt coordinator, everyone was really excited because it made sense for the story. We didn't want it to feel like a gimmick. We didn't want it to feel like it wasn't earned, but we felt like it was a really important way to tell that story, to tell her story about going through the village as it's being raided. And so it took a lot of planning, a lot of rehearsal, an insanely amazing Steadicam operator and his team, and our cinematographer, James, and Steadicam operator, Danny, and Catherine, because we couldn't cut away. We couldn't put a stunt double in. Catherine had to be game, and she was so excited and worked so hard. So a lot of people involved.
It's an incredible shot. And honestly, I really do think that alone should be up for like some Emmy because it was perfect.
That's very
perfect.
Thank you very much.
So I'm going to switch gears a little bit because I do think this is important to talk about. One of the attendees asked it, and it said, "How has it been for you as an Afro-Latina director in Hollywood? And do you feel a responsibility to open doors for other?" I'm going to broaden it a little bit, other Latina directors and crew, because you do have a hand in hiring. So is that like a responsibility you already feel? Is that pressure? Like, what is, because that we are Afro-Latinx are so underrepresented in general. So
yeah, I have to tell you, it's enormously important to me. It's a pressure that I welcome because there are so few of us in this industry. And I'm so grateful to the people that have opened a door, put in a phone call for me, mentored me in any way. And there are many, many people who've done that for me. And it's vital that I carve out time and make sure that I'm looking out for all the Latinx, all the Afro Latina, Indigenous Latina, like anyone that um, that we can help through the process, that has talent that maybe just hasn't had the same opportunity. I think we have to do that, and it's too important. And also, I want to hear those voices, like selfishly, it's like I want to watch those movies. I want to watch those TV shows. I want to watch what people can create. And so yeah, part of me is I want to see that work.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's really important.
That's awesome. So I'm gonna go switch back to a little bit on that actually, because you did have a hand, I believe, in casting Devin for Arthur, and he is the first non-white Arthur, I believe, on television. Can you talk about not that decision, because obviously he's fantastic,
Yeah.
but what was the reaction when you took it to like Frank Miller, the Netflix producers? What did they say when you said we're going to cast a non-white Arthur?
So I have to tell you, I had everyone was on the same page from the beginning. Like it actually was not a battle to convince anyone. And I'll just be honest, like from Netflix, from Tom, from Frank, from all of us that were involved in the casting process, felt like we wanted to build a world that reflected a modern day world. It's a fantasy show. It's historical, but for me, certainly as a young woman of color, I remember watching all kinds of movies and TV shows and never seeing myself, very rarely, and especially in anything like this. And so it was conversations we had early on, and I have to tell you, it was great to be in that position of having a seat at the table, so that I could help and push for the choices that I felt were going to serve the story and be the best for the role. And Devin was amazing in his audition. Like we saw so many people to come in for Arthur, and he won it. And I say it like I get the chills thinking about it, because there was no battle there. Like he was the best actor for the role, and he happens to be who he is. And you can't ask for anything more like that, right? So the important part also was, once we had Devin, it was about populating the world in every possible way so that it didn't ping out. And so those were conversations that we would have. I was obsessed with making sure that in episode 1, we had people of color in speaking roles before you ever met Devin. I didn't want to get to that scene with Devin and then all of a sudden you see an actor of color. I wanted the world to already feel that way. And again, it was like nobody was fighting me. It was just being vocal about it. And everyone was like, yeah, absolutely. This is the world we want. And it felt really organic and everyone was excited about it.
Yeah, no, it was, I mean, it's sad that it was a surprise, but I was like, yes, because I've had so many conversations with actors of color, like really big, like Chiwetel Ejiofor and stuff. And I always talk about how these are trained actors in Shakespeare and stuff, and they don't get cast to play, Shakespeare films, not except for Othello. That's it. So I'm like, it's about time it's not like we dropped from the sky, this century.
Well, it's funny. Tom would say that, Tom, our creator, would say that all the time. It's like, if you look, it's not like the world, all of a sudden just became of color. It's like, so making this world full of brown and black people and different skin tones, and it just felt really right. And it's exciting that I think the response has been that it feels like, organic, and it feels great watching it. And yeah, it just, why wouldn't we want to do it this way?
Mm-hmm. Well, similar to that, it obviously it very much is a period piece, and it is based on the book plus the Arthurian legend. However, upon watching it, you can't help but once you get sucked in, you're like, this very much reflects what's going on, particularly in, like, for me, I saw a lot of reflections of like feminism and women finally getting their voice and the rage and all that. And I've seen a lot of type of this film or films like similar in tone, and they don't quite nail it. This one, it definitely did, because it's not in your face. It's very real life subtleties, you know. And I wanted to discuss, like, was that something you already saw in the script, or was that something that you went back and you're like, you know what, we should tweak this to be like this, because a woman wouldn't do it like this, or Nimue would not do this.
I have to tell you, the script from when I first read it, it had all that layered in, right? That script. And the book was already down the road and in process of being, made. And it had all of these amazing thematic threads throughout it. And for me, my job as coming in for the first and second episode was to really always talk about the tone. What kind of tone is this going to be, right? How do we want to tell this story? And everyone was on board with it being grounded in nature, being subtle and lyrical where it needed to be, and again, trying not to hit people over the head with these themes. And for me, those are the kinds of films and TV shows that I love, when you feel like there's something underneath it. You feel like there's something that is universal. There's something, meaningful that you're watching, but you're being entertained. And it's not, you're not watching something that is just a history lesson. No, it was about these themes of a woman, finding her power and discovering who she is, and how she can help herself and her community and her people. Those were all things that we wanted to talk about tonally. We wanted it to feel, grounded and organic in her relationships and how she moved through the world.
I did want to talk a little bit about perhaps the inspirations in creating the tone, and because in the beginning of episode 2, actually, I immediately I was like, this is like Guillermo del Toro inspired, like Pan's Labyrinth.
Yes.
And I wrote this down. I was like, Guillermo del Toro, Pan's Labyrinth. And so I wanted to discuss, obviously he's huge, especially for something like genre, what other influences, or how big was Guillermo del Toro's influence on you, and particularly to build the world we see here?
Well, I'm a huge fan of Guillermo del Toro, huge fan, and Pan's Labyrinth, one of my favorite films. I could go on and on about that film. And yes, definitely thought about him and that aesthetic in that movie, and the beautiful worlds that he weaves with dark and light, and love him. So very inspired by his work, very inspired by Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. We talked about, that stunning piece of work, and how magic felt so much a part of the world. I never questioned why they were flying through the trees and sword fighting. It just felt like this world was built, and you bought everything that happened in it and everything that unfolded. And so that was an inspiration. So many, pieces of art. I always looked to photography, and our production designer was so amazing at pulling things together. Kat and James, our DP, and Lord of the Rings was another one. I loved watching Lord of the Rings. I love how they had all those epic, beautiful shots, and you really felt like you always pulled into the journey. So yeah, many inspirations.
Yeah, I was so excited. I was like, I saw the Lord of the Rings, the journey aspect, but the aesthetic definitely felt Pan's Labyrinth. I was like,
and of course, I haven't mentioned Frank Miller, which is
stylistic. It's
because it was his creation. It was always in our mind. How do we infuse our world with Frank's aesthetic? He was uppermost in everyone, and it was really interesting because you'd have people on the crew who were huge fans. There was not any person, I think, working on Curse who didn't have a reference point for Frank's work. And so that we had this incredible icon and his beautiful, his amazing illustrations from the actual book of Cursed, but then all of his work, his legacy to draw on. And he was completely available. And we always tried to infuse the world with Frank, because it is Frank.
Yeah, because we actually got a question from when someone watching, they said, watched your episodes of Curse, brava. Were you familiar with the source material when you originally came on board?
So when I came on board, Tom and Frank were still in the process of working on the book. So the book wasn't done before we started prep, which was crazy and its own challenge, because they were almost finished with the book, but Frank was still in the process of doing the illustrations. And so I read the script first, and then I was sent the book and was amazed at the story, because I could then read where the story was headed past the first couple of episodes.
So let's go back to because there's a lot of curiosity about your theater work and how basically, since we're going to discuss what's going on right now, Corona, we're all here, and how it's impacted your work. A few of the questions have definitely post Corona, is theater a viable platform for your work? What do you think what do you think theater is going after COVID, and experiences in working between theater actors and screen actors? So I'm just going to jumble those all up together and say, is there any big difference from theater actors to screen actors, and how to adapt?
Well, I have to tell you, I love theater actors, and I love, film and TV actors. But for me, the actors that come from theater, I think it's, again, a discipline and honing in of a point of view that's really important. Because when you get the text, or you get the script, you get the material, you usually have more time to dig in and rehearse than you do, for example, doing an episodic television show. And so for me as a director, you spend, a few weeks working on the material with your actors. And so you do table work, you have time to explore, time to play. And I love that in an actor. I love an actor who will surprise me. I love an actor who, again, has a really strong point of view. So theater actors have a special place in my heart, but I'll take an actor who is really hardworking and who has a great point of view and who wants to play.
And for the second part of that, I'm expanding it to both, because you theater, film, TV, etc. How has basically the coronavirus affected your work? I mean, we're all affected in some way, and how has it affected directors?
Well, I mean, I can speak for myself. I can speak for, I mean, obviously, we know that this industry had to shut down because of what's happening. And I think for me, it was a shock. It was like a shock to my system to stop. I was in the middle of shooting something, and to just go home and to see what was happening around the world, and to see what was unfolding was terrifying, was scary. I have a son. I have, my brother works, he's a subway driver in New York. When the numbers were going through the roof, my other brother works sanitation. My mother lives alone in the Bronx. I think the human aspect of it, was really scary. And then to see all the suffering and to see what was happening, I have to tell you, I felt very grateful that, knock wood, we were safe. We had a home, we had food, all those things. And I think it made me stop. It made me really stop and analyze even more how important that is. And I know I'm sure many of us have went through a version of that. But for me, having worked so hard and been, traveling a lot and trying to juggle that elusive balancing act, which for me, I never can get, the mother, being a mom, being a director, all those things that, feel like, okay, this is going well and this is falling and so it was an interesting stop in the race of it all. And to appreciate, like, having dinner with my kid and my husband every night and all of that. And then once those few weeks started, then, I've been reading scripts, a lot of scripts. I'm really excited about a film project that I'm attached to, it's new, but hopefully I can talk about it soon. I'm super excited about that. I've never made a movie, and that'll be my first feature. So very excited. And then reading a ton of scripts that I hadn't had time to read. So that was really great. And trying to just, figure out, like I'm sure everyone else, how to navigate and how to move through it and get to the other side.
So what advice, I know it's going to be difficult to answer because we don't know how everything's going to look like at the end of this, but what advice would you give an aspiring female director in the industry, or what advice do you wish you had received? I think both would help a lot of the aspiring directors out there.
Yeah, great questions. I think, I'm sure this advice, I know, I think we hear it, but I'm a big believer in perseverance and grit, and again, hard work, and not taking no for an answer. And that can mean many things to many different people. I think about myself, quiet, I may be on the shy side or not pushy. However, you need to do it for yourself, understanding that if this is what you want to do, right? If this is all you think about, all you want is to tell stories, you want to direct, then not stopping, because there are going to be so many no's in front of you, right? No, you don't have experience. No, you don't have the contacts. No, you've never done this before. You've never done, a cop show, or you've never done fantasy, or you've never done comedy. And so it's about figuring out how to get through that obstacle and persevering. I think that ultimately it's on you, and hopefully then you have a little bit of luck, a little bit of support, some mentorship, some doors that can open. But I think it's about really being pursuing. And then the one other thing I would say, which interestingly, thinking about what's happening with COVID, is leaning on colleagues, leaning on peers. Like, one of the best things that's happened in these months has been my Reframe Rise fellows and the Reframe program. And I can't say enough about how that has lifted my spirits when I've been down in the dumps. And we've been trying to do as many Zoom connects as possible. And Reframe has been amazing. And they've put together these amazing guest speakers for us, and Allison Emilio and Michelle, and they've been so supportive. And then my fellow directors, amazing directors, all of them, and we've gotten together and had chats on our own. And I think having people who support you, aren't going to judge you, and just, talking things through has been invaluable. So I say, seek out peers, seek out colleagues, seek out other directors, to have a community.
I guess this question is actually coming, I believe, from someone on Facebook, and it's a little bit related to that. And she wants to ask you, can you speak a little bit about your experience at the ABC directing program?
Absolutely. So, yeah, another program I was so excited to be a part of. I was directing on One Life to Live at the time, and I'd applied to the ABC directing program, and I got pregnant and was living in New York, and flew to LA to have my semifinal interviews. And I got into the program, and it was a crazy time because I was pregnant and getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and shadowing shows. And one of my mentors, Bethany Rooney, an amazing director. I'll never forget this. I was shadowing an episode with her when she was directing, and I was 8 months pregnant. I had a giant belly. And I think with ABC directing program, what was great is that it was the revamp of the program. It was the first class of the program where they were trying to do something different. They were trying to make their program better. And so, the growing pains of a program like that's trying to get directors of color access to episodic opportunity. I think they really were trying to solve that and crack that. And I know since then, that program, and other programs like it are really, I'm optimistic. They're working really hard at getting people actual jobs. I think those programs are great at connecting individuals, getting the relationships, which all matters when you're trying to get the job. But ultimately, you want to work. You want to get the actual opportunity to do the job. So it's interesting to see how those programs are growing and working at doing that, at actually giving them the opportunity that they deserve for getting in and for doing that.
Mm-hmm. Now, you used the word I've actually seen a lot thrown around where I saw a tweet about this from a showrunner, Gloria Calderon Kellett, mentors, the importance of it, but yet it's also such a like intimate relationship, the mentor-mentee relationship. So it's a question that I saw being thrown out at her, and I've seen it. How do you get a mentor? What is a mentor, and what particularly did it mean to you to have a mentor?
Another excellent question, because I think it can be tricky, right?
Mm-hmm.
I value my mentors so much. When I think about the time that they've spent with me, the effort that they've put into me as a director, or as a creative person, I'm just floored at right how what people do when they just spend time with nothing, with not gaining anything from it. And I've had mentors from the very beginning, like one of my mentors, Brian Murtis, an amazing theater director, amazing director, full stop, just emailed me about Cursed, like watching from New York, and we haven't talked, and it touches me because these are the people that have taught me so much, right? And in television, Bethany Rooney, like I said, Leslie Linka Glatter, and so many other people who've let me shadow them. And I think with finding a mentor, I think it can be such a loaded word. I would take the baby step. I would try to organically see if there's a way to start a relationship, and to try not to put too much pressure on that person that you're seeking to be your mentor. This is my opinion. I'm sure everyone has different opinions, but I think that especially people get busy, they have a lot of, they work, families, but if you start to build a relationship with someone that hopefully if you've been introduced to them, or their work, or you've met them at a networking event, and you stay in contact a little bit here, a little bit there, tell them the New York work you're doing, or send them something to watch, or ask, maybe you have a quick question, can you take 5 minutes of their time on an email, and then see if the relationship builds. I think that's a really kind of lovely way, hopefully, that a relationship can build and then maybe start to cement itself that way. Some of my mentors, like with Bethany Rooney, I was assigned to sort of shadow her through the ABC program. And I don't know that I used that word in the beginning, mentor, because I don't know that, I didn't want to be presumptuous about it. But after our relationship grew, and she was always there for me, she still is. She also emailed me about Cursed. Leslie Linka Glatter will answer a call in a minute. Once those relationships have grown, I've felt like I can call them a mentor. With all the respect. But I think, identify the people that you respect their work. And if you can try and get a connect and build a relationship at, however you feel comfortable and however they feel comfortable, hopefully it'll grow and lead to something fruitful.
No, that's a great answer. I think you're right. Everybody does have a different approach to it, but I do love yours. I think it's something that should be organic, but I do think there's a lot to be said in this industry, especially when we're trying to achieve representation, to have those that are already in the door or getting in the door to bring others with, because that's the only way we're going to get more Latinas directing, more, Black women executive producing, more people of color, just in all aspects, not just in front of the camera. And it's all about, creating those relationships. And I do think it's important. And it's a question a lot of us have, that we don't know how to figure this out.
Yeah, you know what? But I think it's like we talked about it a little bit earlier. It's vital. It's on us to open that door, to do anything we can. And sometimes it's not, that mentor relationship. Sometimes it is just making a phone call or putting in a good word, or letting people know if there's an opening that you know 3 qualified, ADs of color that can fill that position, or an amazing PA, 5 amazing PAs of color that we want to bring in. It's about all of that. It's about, about access, and access is crucial. So anything we can do to help with access, anyone that's in the industry, to help in that way and open a door that way, I think it's on us. We've got to do it. And how can we do it?
Yeah. And actually, this is a great question because as a writer, I'm curious as well. Kelly, as a screenwriter, she says, I am happy to hear that you are talking about how scripts resonate with you. Huge fan of your directing work and all the shows you've worked on, by the way. Can you expand a bit on what makes you want to direct a script?
Oh yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you. That's very kind. Um, I think for me, I still read scripts the way, talking about mentors, my mentor Brian told me, like, sit with the script, no interruptions, read it from beginning to the end, take the time, because you're only going to have that first time to read the script, right? The first time is so important, because your gut feeling about a script, your initial feeling about it, you can't replicate it later on. Right? That first time is that first time. Like when you watch a movie for the first time, you watch a TV show for the first time, that experience is only going to happen once. And so for me, reading a script, it's a lot about that. It's like feeling in the gut. Is there something in this script that connects with me? Do I have a strong point of view? Is there a hook? Is there something that makes me really want to tell this story and dig in? And I ask myself those questions. Is there a great character, right? Is there an interesting relationship that I really want to explore? Does it surprise me? And it doesn't need to be like a shock surprise, but does it have, does it unfold in a way that I wasn't expecting? Those are the questions I ask myself when I read a script. And if I'm getting yeses and excited about, the character, the relationships, the world, then it makes me want to do it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's great. And another question from the audience, and that was a great answer, by the way. As a writer, you helped me enormously. uh, so this question is actually I a little bit curious because I don't know the particulars about how you plan this, but how do you plan your day when you're filming? This came from an attendee. I'm going to add to it, like, does it change depending on what you're working on? Like, would Cursed be planned differently than, say, Jessica Jones was?
So the planning of when you're actually in production, there are so many elements involved that dictate the day. And that's usually, it can change a lot in pre-production when you're figuring out all the elements, right? So it can be as simple as people's schedules, right? Like when is cast available? When is the location available? But what's amazing in TV, right? Film, theater, when you have all these talented people that you're working with, all your colleagues, all your collaborators doing all their works so that it can help you to efficiently and creatively do the directing. That's all you can ask for. It's such a gift. So you have an amazing AD staff who's helping to build that day for you in the most efficient way possible. And for me, the day, I like to get to set really early. I don't even want to think about being late. I want to make sure I get there early. I love my café con leche. I want to have my coffee. I want to just have a little bit of time to myself in the morning. If it's an intimate scene, or even if it's a big action sequence that I have to do that day, it's always for me starting the day in my own sort of quiet space. And hopefully I have a little bit of time with the DP in the morning, with the AD, so that we can talk about the plan and just make sure we're still on track for what we need to accomplish. And then it's like anything else, there are fires to put out, things that go wrong, things that you have to pivot and adjust. And a lot of our job as directors is to do that, is to pivot and adjust and make sure that we keep, for me anyway, I love a calm set. I love to, really well-run environment. I want people to enjoy what they're doing. I want them to feel like everyone is in a safe space to do great work. And so hopefully that's how the day runs usually.
Yeah. This is actually, it's a perfect question because I think we're actually women, we as women get asked this a lot, the work-life balance question. But I like that Jen in our audience just straight up asked, do you ever feel overwhelmed? Like if a project is too big or too ambitious? And my follow-up to that is going to be, and what do you do with that? Like with that feeling?
Yes and yes, and all the time. Like it's funny. People have told me like, "Oh, you're so calm." It's you said things are so zen, and I love that. That's how it looks to the outside world. That's wonderful. Inside, it's like raging. Not all the time, but whatever it is, all the like, nagging feelings of like, is this gonna work, or is this enough, or is this the right thing? All the things that can overwhelm you when you're doing something. And I just have to say, for me, a big part of that, and I really think about taking deep breaths. I was actually told that by this amazing director when I was working in daytime, like, don't forget to breathe. And I remember thinking like, she's right, Joanne, like you got to breathe. And so I try and just calm myself down when it's those situations, especially when it's in public, if it's an overwhelming feeling, like that's for me to have privately and to get through the work for me when I'm in the work mode, right? And also I want to just I want to create this environment where people can do their best work, and I wanted to be able to do my best work. So I want to try and not feel that when I'm on set, right? I want to feel like I've done everything I've needed to do. I've done all my homework. So let me try and take a deep breath and it'll be okay. And I think that's a big part of it too. I prep a lot. I really do my homework. I really spend pre-production hoping I'm asking all the right questions. Hopefully we've got the great team, the collaborators, people are excited to do the work. And then you hopefully have done all the prep and the day comes and hopefully you can take a deep breath and do.
And then just make,
and
you
right?
just gotta hope for the best, right?
Yeah, and also it's like, it could be like, you sometimes you feel like, oh, if you have some massive thing to do, there's like hundreds of extras and crane or drone or whatever it is, but you break it down, it's a story, right? It's the same job. If two people at a kitchen table, you got to tell that story. If it's Nimue running through the village and it being on fire, you got to tell that story. You got to just stay focused on what you're doing and know that you deserve to be there. You've done all the work. You are capable, and do it.
Okay. We do have another question, and I am going to flip this a little because of I do think it has to be asked because it's a thing that women also go through a lot. And the question is, as a director, how assertive do you have to be? The reason I ask this is because as a woman of color, when you're assertive, we're usually typed into complicated, not going to work with her anymore. She makes it too difficult. Is that something that you have like in your because I know for me as it took a lot of work for me to not have that like, oh, they're gonna say I'm this, they're gonna say I'm that, and just do my thing. Is that something that's conscious in you, or is it something that, you know what, this is my job and I'm going to do it no matter what, and if whatever they say, I'll deal with it later?
It's interesting that you bring that up. I think for me, I look at us, right, as women of color, and I'm like, we are not all the same. We're not, right? We have different styles. The way you line up 10 white guy directors, they're going to have 10 different ways to do it, their own style, their own way they move through the world, their own way they run a set. And so for us, right, I think all I want is to be thought of, or all any of us would want to be thought of, is not based on these stereotypes of what we're supposed to be, or however we're supposed to react, or however society thinks we are, right? So for me, I try and just think about myself. And I think I've had, and this is just me, the flip side of that, because I'm on the quiet side. I was painfully shy as a kid, right? And that's not your typical director. Your typical director that you think of is loud, brash, whatever, whatever that stereotype of a director in your head. I don't know. But for me, it was about at some point thinking, you know what, I'm going to do it the way I do it. And I can't worry about if that's how you think a director's supposed to be. If you think I don't know how to handle a crew, then you're wrong because you've never seen me work. Then you've never come to my set. So I don't need to yell. I don't need to scream. I don't need to raise my voice. I'm going to do it the way I do it. But I'm going to be clear. I'm going to be decisive. I know what I'm doing. I'm going to do my job. And I'm only going to do it the way I do it. And I would recommend however you need to do it, you do it the way you do it. I hope that it's not about screaming and yelling and a chaotic environment, but we don't have to apologize for being passionate. We don't have to apologize for being smart or the smartest in the room. We don't have to apologize for having a point of view, right? It's like if it's about the work and that's how you need to express yourself and you need to be clear, you don't have to be, you know, if it's about the work, it's got to be about that. And clarity and decisiveness and focus, that's important in the job.
Now
it's how you do it.
I'm going to show you what the shirt says, chingona, which is what you are. Yeah.
This is not lost on me. I want to say, Yolanda, that you as a writer and all your accomplishments.
Oh, thank you.
These questions and being here with me is wonderful.
Oh, thank you. I hope, honestly, when this whole thing, we get to meet each other because I would love to hang out with you.
Yes, me too. Okay, hopefully it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Yeah. It's going to happen.
All right. Let's get to a couple more before we wrap up. And this is another one that I'm pretty sure a lot of us, because there's a lot of women, I'm over 40. There's a lot of us that are entering that whole second act, wanting, you know, the different career. And a lot of them are turning to, especially as Latinas, are turning directing, screenwriting. So what, for someone like, let's say like me, over 40, didn't go to film school, what is the best way if I were to want to approach a director and say, can I shadow you for a day? Because I'm trying to learn the craft. Like,
well, already I think you asked it in an amazing way, right? It's like, you didn't ask, can you get me a job right away, right? We don't know each other. You didn't ask, can I come and spend the year with you? You know, again, I think like that kind of ask, that's not hard for someone to say yes, right? Oh, here's a person who's interested in directing, who wants to spend the day learning the craft. I love that. I'm like, if I can have anyone on set learning the craft and shadowing me for a day, that sounds amazing. So I think that phrase and how you just couched it, right? Because you want to learn something, you want to experience something, I think is great. Now, then it can be more, right? Let's say you've spent time on set. Let's say you don't need to learn the craft. You're an experienced director and you're really just trying to break in and get a job, right? And that's a different honest conversation. That's something that, you know, I really would love to shadow you for an episode. I've directed 2 indies. I've never worked in TV. Do you have any opportunities coming up? You know, if there's anything I can do. I think knowing with clarity what someone is hoping for or wants, I think is important. So those are different things, right? Learning the craft. Like when I first started shadowing, it was that. I'd never been on single camera sets and I just wanted to be there and learn and see what it was like. And then later it was about, oh, I know what I'm doing. I need the relationships to get the job. But I think, again, you know, access is tricky when you're not in this world and maybe you don't know the directors or you don't know the producers or you don't have any way to get to someone like that. So I think that's where networking forums, you know, are important. I think, you know,
like women in film.
Women in film, right? Women in film, opportunities to be in these mentorship programs or to apply to different, you know, programs that are for the level that you're in. So I think doing research, going online, figuring out how can I get closer to the room or closer to the person who can make decisions is always really helpful. And there's, you know, and tapping into all these organizations that we have and seeing what opportunities are available.
Yeah, it's a great answer because it's intimidating, especially like even for me. And I'm in this world, I'm a journalist. I know lots of creators, but I'm starting to try to write my own scripts. I don't want to ask anybody, because for me, it's like, am I, because am I crossing a line? What barrier is this? I know them professionally, but through a different scope. Like, so I appreciate that someone asked it, because a lot of us that are learning don't know what to ask and if it's going to offend anybody.
You know what? So, I mean, I know what that's like intimately. Like, I was a shadow for so long. I was asking people for help so often. So again, I know I've said it a couple of times, but I feel like the way I did it maybe not doesn't work for everyone. That's the way I did it because it was comfortable for me. And also I'm the same way. I was like, am I bothering people? Am I asking for too much? But there are great people that I know, colleagues that I know who have pushed through harder than that.
Yeah.
And
See, for that, a lot of my friends say, you only are thinking like that because you're a woman.
I don't know, actually, it could be, right? But how am I going to change? That's just how I am, right? So I'm just going to do it the way I do it. But if you, like, I was at some event, and I can't remember, the director said that somebody came from the audience after and told this director, like, I love your work. I really want to shadow you. Is there any way I could come and shadow you? And this director was so impressed by just their conversation that this random stranger, she said yes.
That's amazing.
Right? This random stranger just went up and asked her. So I say, like, if you feel really confident, comfortable with how you're approaching it, then go for yours. Like, I can only do it the way I do it, but I get that, that thing. I do think, though, about valuing your work, like for any of us, and getting the confidence to know you have something to say and that it's worthy of being out there in the world, I think is really important. I think that understanding that and let that guide you and know, you know what, I'm going to ask because I'm coming at it from a place where it's important. It's about the work and it's about my voice, and I have something to say.
Mm-hmm. No, beautiful advice. So just to wrap up, what are you looking forward to working next, if you can say? And do you have a genre that you haven't touched yet that you would like to?
Ooh, oh my God. I feel so grateful that I've had a chance to, like, play in all these different, worlds, because I love great stories, and it's been really nice to not, so far be placed in one box where they're like, you can't do this. I've been able to now I've done fantasy, I did Jessica Jones, or I've done dark drama, and I love all of it. I think drama is, and character driven stories is really where my heart lies, where those are the stories that usually fuel me the most. And something that I haven't done, I haven't made a movie, and that, to me, I love cinema. I'm so hopeful that theaters will be open one day, and that we can collectively sit in a movie theater and the lights can go down and a story can unfold and you can watch it beginning, middle, and end and be transported. That, to me, I love movies.
Mm-hmm. Same.
So I'm really excited to move into that space. It's part of what really excited me about Reframe. I really wanted that. I've done all this television, and I thought I want this support group to help me to realize that dream of mine. And so they've been amazing at that, helping me to figure that out. And I have a film project that I'm really excited about. Hopefully we can talk more about it at some point. But but moving into the film space is what I'm hoping to do next, and hopefully do more pilots and series.
Well, perfect. Thank you so much. I love talking to you, and I hope we get to connect, when this whole thing's over.
I love that.
What's going to be great about that is that I'm going to pop up in the background and just be ear hustling on your conversation. This was so good. I loved it. Thank you both for just like incredibly authentic and thoughtful conversation. That was really inspiring. And then I thought about at the end, how long it's going to be before we get back into movie theaters, and I got sad again. But before that, I was loving it. So thank you so much for this. I encourage anyone who wants to find out more about her work and the work that Reframe has done and advocating for directors like Zetna, who absolutely need to be household names and need to be just like constantly blowing up our screens. You can check out her bio at reframeproject.org. Yolanda, thank you for this wonderful interview. It was fantastic, you know, just listening into the conversation and the questions that you were able to pull out really gave me a sense of, you know, how Zetna got to where she is, and you know, the kind of words of wisdom she has for newbie directors and emerging writers. This was just really inspiring. So I thank you both for being here. I thank the audience for joining us on Zoom, on Facebook. I hope to see you all next week when we talk Summerland with Jessica Swale, Gemma Arterton, and Gugu Mabatara. Thank you to Allison Emilio and Bex Lamantia and the Reframe team. Thanks to Hilda Samariba for helping me set up this conversation with Zetna. Thanks again to Yolanda for hosting it. Good night, everyone. I hope to see you all soon. Take care.
Bye, thank you.